Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Double Booked. I'm Irene, and today I'm very, very excited to be telling you my whole review of Emily Henry's new book, Great Big Beautiful Life. So I kind of just want to jump in and go for it because I'm super excited for this. I want to start off by saying that I read Beach Read a few years ago and I loved it, but I was a broke college student then, so I never really bought any more of her books. But now reading Great Big Beautiful Life and knowing I love Beach Read and knowing I love this book, I have to go out and buy her books. And I think we'll see what happens. I might do a whole mini series on Emily Henry's books because truthfully, she's just such a fun writer. And I always get good vibes every time I pick up a book of hers. So I'm super, super excited to be reading more. But yeah, let's get back into it. So, right off the bat, loved the book, clearly. I'm going to read a quick summary that is actually the synopsis, just like taken from like the back of the book, because I don't feel like I can do it justice by just summarizing it. So, Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry follows two journalists, optimistic Alice Scott and grumpier Hayden Anderson, who compete for, I was going to say complete the chance. I have problems. Who compete for the chance to write the biography of Margaret Ives, a reclusive heiress from a famous scandalous family. They're both invited to a small coastal town, Little Crescent Island, for a month-long trial where they interview Margaret, but she's only giving each of them pieces of her story. As they piece together the truth, their professional rivalry and personal feelings begin to complicate matters. I was going to say compete. It's such a good book and it reads so easily and so well that I actually had to really pace myself and make sure I don't finish this all in one night because I really, really, really wanted to. I had to stop myself. I was exhausted, but I like couldn't stop turning the pages, so I had to like close my book, put it as far away from me as possible, and then I had to go to bed. I finished it in like 3 days, of course, but I couldn't help myself. So we meet Alice, our plucky main character, who is going to Margaret Ives' house in Georgia to write her biography. And we can tell right off the bat that she smiles at everyone. She would stop to like help a goose cross the street, things like that. Very kind person, very smiley, very bubbly. Margaret comes from an incredibly wealthy family and has been hidden away for the last 20 years. Everyone wants to know where she went and why she disappeared. Sound familiar? Sounds like a lot of famous people who have been driven to, I was going to say extinction, and that's like not even a little bit close to the word I should be using, but um, exile, I guess, would be a good word to use. So this book starts out in a way that's probably one of my favorite ways I've seen a book start out. It talks about one of my favorite mantras, and I was a journalism student myself, so I think that this is a really good mantra to live by. There are three sides to the story: his, hers, and the truth. And, regardless of what we try to do as human beings, there's always going to be that margin of error where some things get left out or some things are forgotten because that's just the nature of things. I always say this, though, when people are talking about either things they don't understand or maybe are accusing people of certain things before they have all the facts, because I always say this in reference to like, well, you don't know the whole story. We don't have all the facts. We weren't there. We can't be the ones to judge based off this one thing. So I say this when people gossip because nothing frustrates me more than when someone is just trying to live their life and then it kind of gets ruined by somebody gossiping and like people creating this false narrative for others. And I think that actually goes very much hand in hand with how Margaret feels throughout this book. And you can tell like by the way she tells her story. We also have to remember in this day and age that we have to take things with a grain of salt, but a lot of people take that grain of salt and run with it, and it becomes a whole conspiracy theory, and it doesn't do any good unless we have all the facts. Somebody who studied journalism, it's gotten very much out of hand, and I've taken multiple media literacy courses. People either need to go outside and touch the grass that is right in their front yard or wait until something plays out. Sometimes we just need, I feel like I just thought of it. I feel like a really, really great example of this is the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case. I don't even want to touch on that because justice for Amber Heard for real. I never like it when outlets think it's okay to publish something without vetting it first. I personally always think correct is better than being first. That is something I was also taught. I had amazing professors in school, and they very much prided themselves about being accurate than being speedy. And it's not speed and accuracy would be the best, right? But a lot of times news outlets want to be the first one to report it because then they get all the clicks, they get all the views, they get all the money, so to speak, that comes along with it. But a lot of times it can be very damaging to people. And then I also get very frustrated. This is a really long rant on my opinions of the journalism of today. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings on it. I also get very frustrated with all the people just because they own a cell phone, they think that they are a journalist. And it's not to say that there hasn't been a lot of great independent reporting from people. However, a lot of people really think that just because they can record something, that makes them a journalist. I'm like, there are so many more things. There are so many biases that you need to unlearn in order to be a good journalist. It's a whole thing. Regardless, we need to remember that we're never going to get the full truth, but we can get as close to the truth as we can if we dig deep enough and if we care enough to listen. So I love the structure of this book because when we get the story of Margaret, it starts with like the headline. Like, I'm just going to make up a headline. Let's say it says, Double Booked is annoying. And then it says, here's the truth. Double Booked were feminist people who wanted to talk about X, Y, and Z, and it didn't sit well with the general audience. So it's like that. And it kind of reminds me of the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo structure. But not that I love the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo book, by the way, but I almost like the way this one unfolds more personally. I think it's just, I like it more. So I like it because I feel like it breaks up the book in a way, and then it also really gets lost in the story of the whole Ives family, not just Margaret's, because she starts with her great grandfather who made all of the money for the family, and then goes to her father, or her grandfather, then her father, and then her, and then so on. Off the bat, we meet Alice's competition, whose name is Hayden. Hayden is also a very good journalist who has published a beautiful, renowned memoir about another celebrity. So Margaret invited him down to Georgia because she really liked what he had to offer. Alice actually had found Margaret on a subreddit. Like, people were like, oh, she's down in this little town publishing art under a fake name, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody emailed Alice directly about it, and then Alice went and showed up and found her. So Alice meets him, and she meets him like at the doorstep of Margaret's house as she's leaving, and he is going in. And then she then realizes that they're competing for the same job, and she's like, damn it, I wish I didn't like his book so much because he's actually a brilliant author. But I feel like right off the bat, you can see that these two are magnets to each other. Hayden is clearly trying to stay away from her, but she doesn't let him get away. They actually end up staying at the same hotel for the first like week that they're down there, and Alice will leave a croissant by his door and his matcha that he likes to drink, and she really tries to bring out the best in him, I guess. I don't want to I feel like that sounds really wrong, but I feel like he's very closed off, so she wants him to like open up more, and like she wants to clearly bond over this thing that they can't really talk about with anybody else but each other. So, as we quickly find out, Alice is an optimistic person, and I would call Hayden not necessarily pessimist, but he's definitely more of a realist. It also depends on how you look at it. He is so sure he'll get the job because Margaret is the one that invited him down there, but we learned why that happened later. So I think, personally, as an introverted person, I think that Hayden is very um, creeped out by the way that Margaret just like approaches him so quickly. Or not Margaret, I'm sorry, that Alice approaches him so quickly and is just like in his face, always smiling. He even comments on it. He's like, it's very serial killer like, and trust me, as somebody who would like not like that, I get it. Nonetheless, though, she continuously persists. Eventually, um, they evolve into some sort of friendship where they'll meet up, they'll like work, but not really talk about it because Hayden has like a hard and fast rule about not talking about the work, which I get, but I personally think two heads are better than one, but they also sign NDAs, so I get it. It's very tricky, and it's not like journalists make all this money. Let's be really real. So I feel like they have to very much be careful. Um, they do kiss pretty early on in the book. I would say within like the first 100 pages. I can't remember the exact page number off the top of my head, but it shocked me because I didn't necessarily expect that, but I liked it. I do like a slow burn, but I think I just didn't expect them to be kissing. So go figure. I do think that they are good for each other. I think they both bring out the best in each other and also make each other reflect on why they are that the way that they are. So I feel like that sounded like a mouthful, but he brings out a side in Alice that makes her really think about her feelings and really be in touch with the side that might not be as quote unquote happy, and really figure out why she feels the need to always just be so optimistic about everything. And she really makes him remember that, like, it's okay to be happy sometimes in life. Like, sometimes you just have to enjoy things and you can't just let everybody beat you down, essentially. Does and this is the thing, and this is an ongoing theme throughout this book, that Alice really has to dig down and deal with the issues that she has with her mom, because Alice's dad died, and after that, she feels not as close to her mom. She never really was as close to her mom. She feels like her mom doesn't respect her work. She feels like her mom just doesn't understand why she does what she does, which is interesting because her mom was a journalist. Both of her parents were actually journalists as well, but Alice is more in like the celebrity gossip type way, like a Rolling Stones magazine writer, rather than a climate journalist or a political journalist or any other type of journalist that is quote unquote more respected in her mother's eyes. And we do eventually get to that. And I just like, though, that it wasn't just like an afterthought. Like, clearly, this was a part of the whole theme of the book, because the reason that Alice was so persistent on finding Margaret was also because of the fact that her and her dad used to bond over Margaret, and then Margaret's late husband, I should say, Cosmo St. Clair. So, and he had written songs for Margaret, and they used to listen to them together. So it all ties together, in my opinion, very nicely, because not sometimes books have a subplot and sometimes it feels like they're very thrown in there, but this one didn't feel like that. So we do see Hayden open up more, and Hayden then tells Margaret, I'm sorry, I keep calling Alice Margaret, and I don't know why. I don't mean to. We learn that Hayden's last relationship ended because they both worked together. They were going for the same promotion. Hayden ended up getting it, and then the relationship did get weird after that. And then he left the company and they gave the promotion to somebody else anyway. So it was weird. It got awkward. They broke up. He doesn't want this to happen with Alice, and we see this throughout the book because he tells her as much, but also because he's like, we can't do this until we figure out who gets the job. She even says, are you like, I'll be okay if you get it, but will you be okay if I get it? And I feel like he left her hanging because, one, he really believes he's going to get the job over her, but two, he also just, I don't think he ever thought that she would get the job because of the fact that Margaret invited him down and not Alice. But I'm just like, that doesn't necessarily, I mean, I think it gives you better odds, but I don't think it means you're a shoo-in. To be fair, I also think it's cute though, because I think he really does care about her, and he really is like, hey, like, I want you to be okay. I want you to be, you know, in the best position you possibly can be. And he's like, I don't want things to get weird, and I don't want to get attached, because if you do get upset and you do leave, like, I don't know if I can take that. They're both workaholics though, and I feel like you can't be a journalist without being a bit of a workaholic, but that's a whole other thing. So I think this subplot was a little bit more thrown in my opinion. Alice does have a situationship that, she's kind of not on and off with, but they hook up occasionally and all of these things, but she is the one to really initiate it. And the final straw is, one, when she realizes how much she likes Hayden, but two, when her situationship, whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head right now, but when he is supposed to come visit her where she is because he was doing a shoot in Atlanta and it's a few hours away from the town in Georgia that she's in, and then he cancels, and she's like, you know what, I'm done. Like, I can't keep doing this anymore. I felt like that one was a little bit more forced, in my opinion. Could be wrong. I want to touch on Margaret's stories because I think they're written that I am willing to ask Emily Henry if she is going to write like vignettes on the Ives family, which is what she's essentially done in this book, but I want more. I'm so greedy and I know that, but I don't care because I want more, because they are so well written that I'm captured, and it's almost like I had to pull myself out of those moments to go back into the story that is being written in front of me. And so it's so hard, but I love it. And I think she did such a good job with it. And I just want to dive even deeper into this world that Emily Henry created. So, girl, if you're listening, I have so many questions. Please, I just want to know everything. We are also introduced to a very kooky character named Captain Cecil, and I feel like Cecil was a hugely popular name before 1950. I feel like every type of book you read between like 18, let's say 70, between and until like 1949, there's always a character named Cecil or Cecil, however you want to pronounce it. Especially ocean-based books. I don't know if there is some like strong connection to that. I could probably Google it. I probably won't because I mean, I care, but I don't know how much I really care. Anyway, he owns a bar and he is interested in the work that Hayden and Alice are doing. And of course, this comes back later because as you find out, um, especially as you find out the big reveal in the book, which we'll talk about in a little bit, he is the doctor that had taken care of the Ives family. Feel like that Margaret keeps him close because she wants him to always be there because she doesn't trust anybody else. And I do get that because of the fact that, with such prominent families, even though HIPAA violations exist, I feel like because of the fame, because of the money somebody could earn from leaking secrets or anything, people do that. And it's horrible and it's not okay. But unfortunately, a lot of people tend to do that. I don't think that's okay. And I really think that regardless of whether or not it's a famous person, people should be upholding their HIPAA code of ethics. And I think that's really shitty that it doesn't matter how much money you have, but unfortunately, you can't buy privacy. And I get it. They are famous public figures, but your medical records, really? Like, that's not cool. That's just my opinion, but again, because both Alice and Hayden have NDAs, they can't say what they're working on, and they tell people that they're doing, work about vacationing here in this town. So they're going around trying the bars, trying the like diners, all of these things. I mentioned that Margaret is paying them for their time here, so she is giving them a stipend. She is giving them, for like housing and food and all those things, which is nice because they are here for a month on a quote unquote trial basis. Even though we see how that turns out, it's very nice that she is doing that for them because not everybody does that. And even really rich people are very stingy with their money. They're not rich by accident. Um, and I just would like to take this time to state that because they are in Georgia, I have a few problems with Georgia at this moment in time. While it is a beautiful state, their politics are absolutely insane. Their policies and their laws are abhorrent, in my opinion. Right now, they are currently keeping a woman who is brain dead alive, quote unquote, by machines against her family's wishes because of their stupid heartbeat law. We don't know how this is going to end. We don't know if the fetus is going to be okay. We know, I mean, they clearly don't care about the poor woman in the bed. Okay. Her name is Adriana Smith, and she didn't deserve this. Even in death, she cannot get peace. Okay, she was 9 weeks along. The fetus is no more than a clump of cells at that point. It's not like she was 7 months along with the baby ready. Her family does not want this. They don't want her to be, quote unquote, kept alive for the sake of the fetus. It is indescribable. It is so abhorrent to think about that this is being done in the United States. This is an episode on The Handmaid's Tale that you're like, why would they do that? They are doing this in real time. This is absolutely insane. Call your state representatives, demand their time, demand a response from them, and ask them, what are you going to do about it? You are not getting reelected. You are not getting another one of my dollars until you fix this. This woman deserves justice. This woman deserves peace. She does not deserve to have her dignity taken away from her, even in death. It is insane to me that this is happening in 2025. On another note, another problem I have with the state of Georgia is not something that they can necessarily control. Georgia sucks in the summer. It is the South. It is very humid. It is very hot. I remember I had gone to Savannah to visit one summer. It was 115 degrees every day with 100% humidity. It's disgusting. I don't know why people want to live in the South, truthfully. I really I don't get it in the summertime. It's too hot. Their policies and their politics suck. That's another story. So back to the story. Alice and Hayden worked again, like I was saying, they work side by side. Alice really tries hard to get Hayden to talk about the book and to talk about what Margaret has told her. And she wants to talk about it, but Hayden won't. And she wants to know what she has said to Hayden, but he, again, will not budge. Sorry, I just felt a hair in between my fingers. I think they both would have complemented each other very nicely, and I think they should have worked together on this book because their styles are so different and so unique that they could really put together a beautiful story. Spoiler alert for the end of the book, they end up actually working on the book together. So we'll get there, we'll get there. I just wanted you to know that I was right. No, I'm kidding. We learn more about Hayden. We learn that he is very reserved because of the fact that his family um, was the family of a local politician. So his father was a local politician. His family was always under scrutiny. So now he has decided to be closed off because of it. I think my biggest problem with Hayden in the story is how closed off he is. So there are a few things, just as somebody who has studied journalism, majored in it, all of these things, that you need to do as a journalist. Making people feel comfortable and safe in your environment in order for them to tell you the things that you would like to find out, especially in this instance when you want someone's entire life story that isn't just a media headline, right? So you want all of these things. This is the thing that I was always taught in journalism school is when you ask somebody a question, like let's say you're talking to Margaret and you're like, "So Margaret, I mean, I wouldn't start with what was it like growing up as an Ives child, but maybe I'd be like, what was your favorite part about your childhood, or what did you struggle the most with about your childhood?" First of all, you don't ask them a yes or a no question, you ask them an open-ended question. Second of all, if there is a silence, you let it be because people are more willing to talk when it's silent. So if I just sat here and I waited for somebody to answer me, right? Like I wish Christina was here so I could talk to her. But usually people don't do well with silences. So the biggest thing I've learned is if you just be quiet, and I feel like lawyers also use this tactic, people will just start talking. They get nervous. They feel like there's an awkward silence. They feel like they have to fill it somehow, some way. There you go. There's your answer. That's how you get all of these like little things from people. And I've found that it works so well when writing a story because I had to do a lot of personal pieces when I was writing for the paper and when I was writing for my classes, and people would just spill their guts. Not like in a like, I was publishing anything super salacious, but people would just talk and talk. And that's okay because that's what I needed. I needed quotes, I needed a story, I needed everything from them. But the thing about Hayden is the fact that he does not give anything of himself. And that might work for some people, but not everybody. Margaret is clearly like a secrets for secret type of person, but it's also like you can't expect somebody you've never met before, who doesn't know you, who is weary of media and press, to be comfortable with you just because they invited you down there. Like, give them a reason to trust you, And I think that Alice continuously does that throughout the book. And I know this is written from Alice's perspective, so we can't necessarily know everything that has been said between Hayden and Margaret, but from what Margaret tells Alice, we do see that he doesn't do a lot of talking, that he wants answers and he's just waiting for them to kind of fall in his lap, and it seems like he gets frustrated when they don't. However, Alice is like willing to open up, is willing to be like, we don't have to record this, is willing to get the full story because she understands the bigger picture rather than just doing it to get it done, if that makes sense. And it's not to say that Hayden isn't good at his job. I think, though, people forget that you need to approach everybody differently and not everybody works the same way as somebody else. And that's what separates like a good journalist from a great journalist, is somebody who can adapt to the situation. That's what separates a lot of people in their profession from just somebody who's good at their job. Somebody who's great at their job is somebody who can adapt to these situations and switch it up on the fly, especially when it needs to be done. frustrates me about Alice and Hayden is the fact that they clearly have such a pull towards each other. They're like freaking magnets, but Hayden doesn't want to pursue it, and I understand why he doesn't want to pursue it. But there is a point where I'm just like, just do it. Just do it. Like, you clearly are not even trying to resist it. Like, you're not trying to stop kissing her. You're not trying to do all of these things. Whatever. They end up hooking up the night before Alice is supposed to give her proposal to Margaret. Then she finds out that Hayden pulled out of the job and gets pissed. So there's this huge scandal that the Ives family is known for. Margaret's sister gets sucked into a cult. She's there for years. They extort a lot of money from her. And then eventually, they meet up with the sister, and Margaret's sister ends up exposing the cult. Like, the FBI infiltrates all of these things. Um, we later find out that she made Margaret promise that she has to tell her story. Because there's a big secret that Margaret has been keeping, and spoiler alert if you want to read the book first, Margaret has a secret child. And that secret child is Hayden's mother. Alice eventually pieces this together because she finds out that Hayden's mom is adopted, and she's like, how old is your mom? How old are you? All of these things, and then it all just falls into her lap so beautifully. But Margaret had a secret child, and she then wants to get to know her child. She wants to get to know her grandchild. But then she doesn't want to tell Hayden anything because she's like, well, Hayden has been so cold and unresponsive to me. And like, that's fair. I get that. But you can't drag him all the way, make him waste like a month of his time from work, by the way. I know he's getting paid, but like, who knows what else he could be doing in this time, because if he doesn't go back with a piece or something, he could get in a lot of trouble. Publishers and editors do not like that. I'm just saying, like, she's really risking his reputation as a journalist here. It's a book. I know I get so tight about these things, but I'm like, it's a book at the end of the day. It's just like mean because you make not only Hayden come down here for a month and do these things, but you also make Alice come down. I know she didn't make anybody do anything, but she had Alice also come down here for a month. She had Hayden come down here for a month when there wasn't even a job that was actually there. She only did this so Hayden would believe that there was actually something and not just like some giant ruse for something else, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. And that's what I think gets me really upset, is the fact that she also wasted Alice's time. And it's not to say that Alice didn't have a good time like learning about these things, but again, she also could have been working on other things. She could have been doing something else. And if you're not going to tell him the truth, then I think it was just rude. Really, that's just me. Put in the NDA because she's not an idiot and she's definitely been duped before by people, that Alice can't tell Hayden things that she's only told Alice and vice versa. She did this explicitly because of the fact that she knew Alice would figure it out, because she was telling Alice and Hayden different stories, which they both had kind of suspected throughout the book, but then you see it happen and I'm just like, God, rich people kind of suck at the same time, right? Because they think they can do whatever they want, they can throw money at it, and everything's going to be fine. And that's what gets me about Margaret Ives. And I understand it's her story, but you also can't just like be telling two different stories. What if they both broke the NDA and decided to speak to each other and figured out all of these things? It's a book. It all works out in the end because Emily Henry's great, but this is what keeps me up at night, you guys. And so Alice is rightfully furious. She's mad that she can't tell Hayden, so she ends up actually ghosting him and going to stay with her mom for a few weeks. God, what is this hair on my lip? She ends up staying with her mom for a few weeks, who also lives in a different part of Georgia. And she and her mom like are kind of like dancing around each other. And one day, her mom kind of confronts her and is like, I don't know what to do with you. And she's like, well, you know what? I always feel some type of way because you never loved me for me. You love me, but you don't like me. And her mom's like, that's not even true. She's like, I just don't know how to relate to you. You got along so easily with your father and you don't feel the same way towards me. And I don't think she's necessarily trying to put blame on Alice here. I think she's just trying to tell her like, hey, like, I don't know how to find common ground with you. You're my child. Of course I love you and I like you and all. And sorry, I'm getting really weirdly emotional about this, but then I think this is why, because she goes into this story of like, you were always attached at my hip. I couldn't go anywhere without you. You were my shadow and I loved that. But then one day, things started to change and you started to hang out with your dad more. And she's like, not that I cared, but like, suddenly we weren't as close as we once were. We weren't as close as we once were. And, I didn't know what to do with that because I didn't know how to be what you needed me to be. And of course, Emily Henry writes it very nicely. They make up. They essentially promise to make more time for each other and actually bond and all of these things, which is beautiful. Unfortunately, the angry part of me and the cynical part of me gets angry because of the fact that that's unrealistic. That's not going to happen in real life with a lot of people, not everybody. Hopefully, if you bare your soul out to somebody and you're like, hey, this is actually something that's really bothering me, hopefully they'll actually take the time to listen. But 9 times out of 10, especially because if people haven't been to therapy, they're not going to listen. It's frustrating. I understand. As somebody who has these ideas in her own head, I get it. Like an olive branch that her mom does introduce to her is inviting all of Alice's friends over to essentially make her feel better and to really give her something to kind of pull her out of her funk, which I think is a really huge step because she's like, look, I know I can't deal with this the way you need me to, but I'm going to bring people here who can. And it's her friends. And then Hayden, of course, pops up and is demanding to know, like, do you actually love me? Like, all of these things. And eventually they confess their love for each other and end up together. And then it goes into the epilogue. In the epilogue, we find out, one, that Hayden finds out he's the grandson of Margaret Ives and that his mom was the long lost child between Cosmo St. Clair and Margaret Ives. And the reason that Margaret even gave the baby up in the first place was because of the fact that, one, she so there's a lot that goes into it. One, Margaret had had a lot of miscarriages. Margaret was having a really hard time getting pregnant and staying pregnant. And so she was about 9-10 weeks along when she started bleeding and she thought she was going to have a miscarriage. So she told her husband, Cosmo, like, we need to go to the hospital. I don't know what's going on. Unfortunately, there were paparazzi waiting for them to leave the house, and so they started chasing them, and then Cosmo was getting frustrated, and then they ended up getting into an accident that killed him, which is horrible. But thankfully, but thankfully at the same time, this was the time that Margaret's pregnancy stuck around, and then she had the baby, but she decided to give the baby up for adoption because she knew that the baby could never survive in an environment like this, and she wanted the baby to have a better life, which is kind of ironic because then her baby ends up marrying a local politician, and then is so heavily scrutinized and deals with the depression that Margaret's sister, we find out, dealt with because of all the paparazzi and everything. The beautiful thing about the story is the ending. One, this is where we find out that Alice and Hayden both wrote the story of Margaret Ives together, but Alice is also giving birth to their daughter. And, their daughter is going to have their grandma, their great grandma, their other grandma, their grandpa, and, all these amazing aunts and uncles with them. And it's a really beautiful wrap up to such a crazy story because this is, unfortunately, a lot of families just have a lot of secrets and a lot of things that could be going down with them and all of these things. But it's beautiful and I love it. And I think I'm going to end up just doing a mini series on Emily Henry books because she's so freaking amazing and I love her so much. And I'm definitely doing it after I finish The Summer of Sarah. But if you've read this story so far, I know this is a newer one, so if you've read it though, please let me know your thoughts. Just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you did like this video, please like, subscribe, comment down below, whatever. If not, no worries, don't worry about it, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you loved this story too if you read it. But other than that, I hope you guys have a good Memorial Day weekend. This should either be out today, which is Friday, or tomorrow, which is Saturday. Either way, I hope you guys have a good one.